Amara Khan thought she had married the man of her dreams, but Rashid Al Mansoor, the Dubai billionaire who swept her into a life of diamonds and luxury, would soon turn their honeymoon in paradise into a nightmare of jealousy, rage, and murder. Amara Khan had grown up in Lahore with dreams bigger than her surroundings could ever contain. By her mid-20s, she had become a rising model in Dubai, appearing in fashion events and social media campaigns that promised her a glamorous life. But the reality was not as dazzling as it looked. She lived in a small apartment with 2 other girls, often struggling to make rent between modeling gigs. Beneath the bright lights and glossy pictures, she longed for security, something permanent, something that would finally prove she had made it. Her chance seemed to arrive one warm evening at a charity gala hosted in one of Dubai's most exclusive hotels. That night, the crowd shimmered with money and influence. Business tycoons, politicians, and celebrities mingled under crystal chandeliers. Amara, wearing a borrowed designer gown, moved through the room with quiet confidence, unaware that someone had been watching her from across the hall. Rashid Al Mansoor, one of the richest men in Dubai, had built an empire in real estate, technology, and oil investments. He was 45, tall, and impeccably dressed, carrying the kind of power that filled any room he entered. To the public, he was a generous philanthropist and devout family man. To those who knew him closely, he was demanding, controlling, and consumed by his reputation. Rashid approached Amara with charm and precision. Within days, their meetings became a daily routine: private dinners in 5-star restaurants, helicopter rides over the desert, and shopping trips where he insisted on paying for everything. For Amara, it felt unreal. After years of struggle, here was a man who seemed to adore her, who promised a life she had only seen in movies. Her friends warned her that Rashid's affection felt too fast, too intense, but she brushed off their worries. She believed she had finally found love. The proposal came less than 2 months after they met. Rashid arranged a private dinner on a yacht beneath the Dubai skyline and presented her with a diamond ring worth more than most people's homes. The media called it the wedding of the decade. Photos of the couple flooded magazines and social media. Rashid, the billionaire businessman, and Amara, the beautiful model, they were the new power couple everyone wanted to know. But not everyone celebrated. Some of Rashid's business associates whispered about his temper and the quiet divorce that had ended his first marriage. His ex-wife had left the country soon after, never speaking publicly about what had happened. A few journalists hinted at domestic abuse, but those stories disappeared almost as soon as they appeared. Rashid's influence was strong enough to make scandals vanish overnight. In private, Rashid began showing small signs of control. He asked Amara to delete old photos from her Instagram, questioned her about her friends, and made subtle remarks about how a wife should behave. He told her that modesty and purity were the foundation of a respectable marriage. Amara took it as traditional thinking, not realizing how dangerously literal his views were. When the wedding day arrived, it was like a royal event. The ballroom glittered with gold and white roses. The cake towered over the crowd, and a full orchestra played as Amara walked down the aisle in a diamond-studded gown. Cameras flashed, guests cheered, and Rashid smiled beside her, every inch the loving husband. Yet deep inside him, a darker emotion was growing, an obsession with purity, honor, and control. He saw Amara not as a partner, but as a possession that needed to live up to his image. Amara, blinded by the grandeur and overwhelmed by love, didn't see the warning signs. She was stepping into a life of luxury, unaware that behind the diamonds and chandeliers waited a man whose pride would soon turn deadly. The honeymoon was meant to be a fairy tale, a celebration of their love far away from the noise of Dubai's high society. Rashid chose the Maldives, a private island resort that only the world's wealthiest could afford. The resort offered ocean view villas, private chefs, and personal staff for every couple. For Amara, it was the first real break she had taken in years. She imagined walking barefoot on the white sand, swimming under the sun, and finally relaxing with the man she believed loved her more than anything. When they arrived, the staff greeted them with garlands and champagne. Rashid, however, seemed distant. He smiled for the cameras but rarely looked at Amara the same way he used to. He spent most of his time on business calls, often locking himself in the villa's study for hours. Amara tried to convince herself it was just work, but something about his silence unsettled her. The sparkle that once lit up his eyes was gone, replaced by a cold, watchful stare. The first few days passed quietly. They went snorkeling and shared candlelit dinners by the water, yet Amara could sense that Rashid's affection was fading. He questioned her subtly, asking strange things about her past, her friends, and whether she had ever been in love before. His tone was calm, but his eyes were searching, testing. One night, as they sat on the balcony, he asked her if she had ever lied to him. She laughed nervously, brushing it off as a joke. Rashid didn't smile. From that night on, the warmth between them began to die. On the third evening, Amara tried to cheer him up by planning a private beach dinner. The staff decorated the sand with lanterns and flowers, but Rashid barely touched his food. He drank heavily, staring into the distance. The silence between them was unbearable. When they returned to their villa, the atmosphere shifted. Rashid accused her of hiding things, of pretending to be someone she wasn't. Amara was confused and frightened. She tried to calm him down, but his anger only grew. He smashed a glass against the wall and stormed out to the deck, pacing back and forth for hours. The next morning, Amara appeared at breakfast alone. The staff noticed her swollen eyes and trembling hands. She claimed she hadn't slept well. Rashid didn't join her, saying he had business matters to attend to. Later that day, he cancelled their couple's massage and told the hotel not to disturb them. The staff thought it was strange but said nothing. Guests like him were treated with utmost discretion. By the fourth night, the resort security received a complaint from nearby villas about shouting and breaking sounds. When the staff went to check, Rashid opened the door, his shirt unbuttoned, his tone calm but cold. He told them everything was fine and shut the door quickly. No one dared question him. After that, the lights in their villa stayed off for hours. The next morning, Amara didn't show up for breakfast. Rashid told the front desk that she wasn't feeling well and had requested not to be disturbed. He settled the bill that afternoon, telling the staff he had to return to Dubai for urgent work. When the manager offered to send a car to the airport, Rashid declined, saying he preferred privacy. He boarded his private jet alone. 2 days later, when the cleaning staff entered the villa to prepare it for new guests, they found the room in disarray. Broken glass, overturned furniture, and stains on the carpet hinted that something terrible had happened. Behind the bed, wrapped in a silk sheet, lay Amara's lifeless body. Her skin was bruised, her lips split, and her face frozen in silent terror. The dream honeymoon had ended in horror, and the man who promised her forever was already gone. The discovery of Amara's body sent shockwaves through the resort. The staff, trained to maintain discretion at all times, had never encountered anything so horrifying. Within minutes, the manager locked down the villa and called the local authorities. Police officers arrived by speedboat, sealing off the pier that connected the villa to the main island. The serene turquoise waters that had once symbolized paradise were now the backdrop of a gruesome crime scene. Inside the villa, investigators found chaos. The glass coffee table was shattered, a lamp lay broken on the floor, and one of Amara's earrings was discovered near the balcony railing. Bloodstains trailed from the living area to the bedroom, where the silk bed sheet covered her body. The medical team carefully unwrapped it, revealing multiple bruises on her neck, arms, and legs. Her ribs were fractured, and her fingernails were broken, suggesting she had tried to defend herself. It was clear this was no accident. The resort's CCTV system was quickly reviewed. Footage showed Rashid leaving the villa before sunrise, wearing dark sunglasses and carrying only a small leather bag. He walked calmly down the wooden path and boarded a private boat that took him to the main island. From there, he flew out of the Maldives on his jet at 7:45 a.m., nearly 20 hours before Amara's body was found. The timeline was tight but damning. Forensic experts spent 2 days combing through the villa for evidence. In a drawer near the bed, they found a torn letter written in Amara's handwriting. The note had been ripped into several pieces, as if someone had tried to destroy it in anger. investigators pieced it together as best they could. The incomplete message read, asterisk, I wanted to tell you before we married. I didn't want to lose you. I was afraid of how you'd react. Asterisk, the rest of the letter was missing, leaving behind painful questions. What was she trying to confess, and why did it provoke such violence? The autopsy confirmed that Amara had died from blunt force trauma to the head and chest. The bruising pattern suggested a prolonged beating. There were no signs of forced entry, confirming that her attacker had been someone she trusted. The police officially classified the case as a homicide and issued a red notice through Interpol for Rashid Al Mansoor. News of Amara's death broke internationally within hours. Media outlets across Pakistan, the UAE, and the Maldives flooded social media with her smiling wedding photos beside headlines calling it a honeymoon nightmare. Public outrage grew rapidly, with thousands demanding justice for Amara. Her friends spoke to reporters, describing her as kind and ambitious, someone who only wanted to build a life of happiness. None could comprehend how her dream marriage had turned into tragedy so quickly. Meanwhile, Rashid's team in Dubai remained silent. His assistants claimed he was unreachable, while his lawyers issued a brief statement insisting that Amara's death was an unfortunate accident. They claimed she had fallen during an argument and that Rashid had left in distress, unaware of her condition. But behind the scenes, Dubai police began receiving requests for cooperation from Maldivian authorities. The case gained international attention not just because of the brutality, but because of who Rashid was, a billionaire with connections to politicians, royal families, and major corporations. The Maldives police were under immense pressure to handle the case with transparency. They froze Rashid's assets on the island, seized his villa, and submitted their evidence to Interpol. For the first time, Rashid's name, once associated with luxury and prestige, appeared alongside the word murder. Back in Lahore, Amara's family received the devastating call. Her mother fainted when she heard the news. Her father, speaking through tears, told reporters that his daughter had chased love, not money, and had paid the ultimate price. They demanded her body be returned home for burial, refusing any contact with Rashid's representatives. As her coffin was flown back to Pakistan, investigators continued to search for answers. The missing portion of her letter remained a mystery. Some believed it contained the secret that triggered Rashid's rage, something about her past that he couldn't forgive. Others suspected it was something deeper, something that could expose the darkness he had hidden behind his empire. Whatever the truth was, it had died with her that night in paradise. As investigators dug deeper into Amara's background, fragments of her life before Rashid began to emerge. She had grown up in an ordinary middle-class home with a small circle of friends and a dream of making it big in the fashion world. Her journey to Dubai was meant to be the start of a new chapter, but like many young women chasing success, she had made choices that she kept private. Among them was a serious relationship she had once shared with a photographer in Karachi named Imran. It lasted nearly 3 years and ended quietly, though friends later admitted Amara had been deeply in love. There was no scandal, only heartbreak, and Amara rarely spoke of it again. When the Maldivian police shared their findings with Interpol, Dubai's investigators began tracing Rashid's digital footprint. What they uncovered painted a disturbing picture. Rashid had been suspicious long before the honeymoon. Weeks before the wedding, he had hired a private investigator to look into Amara's past. He ordered background checks, phone record scans, and even requested information about her medical history. The file showed that he was fixated on one thing: proof of Amara's purity. He believed that marrying a woman without flaws would protect his family's reputation. The irony was that he had hidden multiple affairs and questionable business dealings of his own. Emails recovered from Rashid's encrypted account revealed a chilling detail. 2 weeks before the wedding, he received a report from his investigator mentioning Amara's former relationship. Although it was not scandalous, Rashid was enraged. He confronted his investigator for not uncovering this sooner and replied with a message that read, asterisk, If she lied once, she will lie again. Asterisk from that moment, his obsession took a darker turn. During the honeymoon, Rashid had continued digging into her past. He secretly contacted an acquaintance in Karachi who confirmed that Amara had once been engaged. This was the final spark that set off his fury. The resort's surveillance footage later revealed Rashid pacing on the villa balcony for over an hour before the incident. He looked agitated, repeatedly gripping the railing and muttering to himself. Minutes later, loud noises were captured on nearby cameras, followed by silence. When this information surfaced, Rashid's defense team tried to suppress it, claiming the evidence violated privacy laws. But by then, the story had already leaked. International media broadcasted headlines about the billionaire who allegedly killed his new wife over honor. Feminist groups and human rights activists across South Asia began organizing protests online, demanding his arrest and the release of all evidence. Forensic analysts re-examined the torn letter found in the villa. Advanced imaging revealed faint ink impressions on the missing portion, showing the outline of a few words. Asterisk, I hoped you could forgive me. Asterisk, investigators concluded that Amara may have tried to confess her previous relationship, fearing that Rashid would eventually find out. Her attempt at honesty might have been the moment that sealed her fate. As more details came to light, Rashid's carefully constructed image began to crumble. His business partners withdrew from projects, investors abandoned his companies, and even members of his family distanced themselves publicly. Dubai's elite, once eager to attend his events, now avoided his name altogether. Behind closed doors, many admitted they had always known about his temper, but had chosen to ignore it. The final blow came when a confidential witness, one of Rashid's personal assistants, came forward. He told investigators that Rashid had called him from the Maldives hours after the murder, instructing him to destroy documents and transfer money into an offshore account. The assistant saved the call log as proof, claiming he feared for his own safety. This testimony shattered Rashid's defense and confirmed what many already believed. The murder had not been an accident born of passion, but an act of rage, control, and obsession. The illusion of the perfect couple had finally collapsed. Rashid Al Mansoor, once admired and untouchable, was now the center of an international hunt. The truth that Amara had tried to share before her death was small, human, and forgivable, but in the eyes of a man consumed by pride, it became a reason to destroy her. The courtroom in mail was overflowing the day Rashid Al Mansoor finally appeared before the judge. Journalists, lawyers, and diplomats from across the world crowded the benches. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but every person in that room knew they were witnessing a case that had shaken not only the Maldives, but the entire Middle East. Rashid, dressed in a plain white shirt and gray trousers, looked nothing like the powerful billionaire who once commanded respect everywhere he went. His head was lowered, his hair unkempt, and his hands trembled slightly as the charges were read aloud: premeditated homicide and obstruction of justice. The prosecution laid out the evidence with precision. They presented forensic photographs, autopsy results, and security footage showing Rashid leaving the villa alone at dawn. They played audio from nearby security cameras capturing muffled shouting and the sound of glass breaking just hours before Amara's death. The torn letter, partially reconstructed by forensic experts, was displayed before the court. Each piece of evidence painted the same picture: a man whose obsession with control and reputation had turned fatal. Rashid's defense team argued desperately that Amara's death was an accident. They claimed she had fallen during an argument and that Rashid panicked and left in shock. But the forensic pathologist's report was clear: the nature and extent of her injuries proved deliberate violence. Broken ribs, head trauma, and defensive wounds all indicated a prolonged assault. Even the blood spatter analysis matched a pattern consistent with multiple blows, not a single fall. As the trial progressed, witnesses were called. Resort employees recounted Rashid's erratic behavior, the noise complaints, and the moment he dismissed their concern with chilling calmness. The private investigator he had hired testified via video link, confirming Rashid's fixation on Amara's past and his repeated demands for proof of purity. The testimony of Rashid's assistant sealed his fate, a detailed account of the phone call Rashid made the morning after the murder, instructing him to delete files and wire funds offshore. The defense tried to discredit the assistant, calling him a bitter employee seeking revenge. But his phone records and timestamps matched exactly with flight and hotel data. Rashid's composure finally cracked during cross-examination when the prosecutor asked if he believed Amara deserved to die for her past. His silence filled the courtroom, and the faintest flicker of rage passed across his face, the same rage that had ended her life. When the verdict was announced, the courtroom fell silent. Rashid Al Mansoor was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 25 years in prison. The judge cited his lack of remorse and his attempts to evade justice as aggravating factors. Outside, crowds cheered as the news broke. For many, it was not just justice for Amara, but a rare victory against the untouchable power of wealth and status. In Dubai, Rashid's empire collapsed overnight. His companies were seized, luxury properties auctioned, and his family's name dragged through endless headlines. Former allies distanced themselves, and friends who once praised him now pretended not to have known him at all. His image, the charming philanthropist, the successful businessman, was gone forever. Amara's body was returned to Lahore, where thousands attended her funeral. Her parents, too broken to speak, stood by her grave as white flowers covered the coffin. They refused the financial compensation offered by Rashid's lawyers, stating that no amount of money could cleanse what he had done. Her friends created a foundation in her name to support women trapped in abusive relationships, calling it Amara's Voice. In the years that followed, documentaries, news segments, and online campaigns continued to tell her story not as a scandal, but as a tragedy born of arrogance and obsession. Rashid lived out his days in a male prison cell, forgotten by the world he once ruled. And while Amara's life had been cut short, her death became a symbol of how far power can fall when confronted by truth. The paradise that began their honeymoon had become his eternal prison, a reminder that no amount of money can bury guilt or rewrite what happened that night by the sea.